Keyshawn, would you please start us off here? What was your biggest takeaway from the Dolphins' loss?
I mean, it was glaring and it was obvious, I think, to both of us, or both of you guys as well as me. Tyreek Hill. When Tyreek Hill got injured, it didn't even look all that egregious. It was almost like he didn't go under the tent. They wasn't really checking him on the sideline. He got up and he just stood there and he was, it was almost like they had a conversation with him, right, Skip?
Okay. And he did return to the football
game. And he returned in the second half to the football game. But let's start there. Once he went out of the game, everything changed for the Miami Dolphins offensively. Tua looked like a different person.
He did.
This is clearly why when you have these MVP conversations and you're talking about should Tyreek Hill's name be mentioned in it, well, here you go. There's evidence last night that showed what he looks like or what they look like when he's in the game and when he's out of the game. And then you talk about Tua at the quarterback position. He looks like a different quarterback.
He does.
He held on to the football way too long at times. He was throwing the ball in the dirt at times. And then when you go to the head coach and Mike McDaniels, he, for whatever reason, didn't make the necessary adjustments when Tyreek was out of the game, even to a point where they got into the red zone and they threw the ball 3 straight times and had to settle for 3 instead of pounding the ball, doing some things that they probably would have done. So you start there. When they ended the third quarter and they were down with fourth quarter down with 3 minutes to go, there was 0.4% chance that Tennessee would win the football game.
Well, it hadn't happened in like 6 years.
It hadn't happened in a very, very long time. Then Tyreek Hill enters the game in the second half instantly. Boom. They get him the football on a deep square out. All of a sudden, it looks like they're going in the right direction. Him in and out of the game, didn't necessarily help them. So that was the takeaway on the offensive side. Defensively, they hurt themselves at times in the fourth quarter by allowing Will Levis to go down in the fourth quarter, be 10-13, a $138 and a touchdown, also a passer rating of 136.1. The defense decided that they're going to allow them in DeAndre Hopkins to get out of bounds on numerous times, not cover him, but they also figured out Xavier Howard couldn't cover him. So they went totally away from Ramsey and decided to pick on Howard, which was smart on their part. So when you look at it, Miami did this to themselves. Nobody Tennessee saw it and they took advantage of it. That's just it, and that's all. Simple.
I mean, he said everything. He said everything.
But you've been a big fan of Tyreek for MVP.
No question.
So
and does
that sort of
that validates it. I mean, for anybody who's watching the game, for anybody who sees Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins play, Tua Tagovailoa is leading the NFL in passing yards, and you still think Tyreek is the reason. Tyreek is the reason. Tyreek is the engine. Like, sure, he's the driver, but what's a driver with a car with no engine? And what you saw when Tyreek Hill wasn't on the field is the car with, it went from a V12 to a V6.
It did.
And it looks totally different when you got the V6 and you in NASCAR. But when you get the V12 back, then all of a sudden, you're back in the race, you're back in the running. But it really shows how evident it is that he's a need and he's the most valuable player on this team. But in the same breath, that defense has to show up and they have to make adjustments. There are not a ton of weapons on this Tennessee Titans team outside of DeAndre Hopkins. There aren't a ton of weapons that
Derrick Henry carries the ball, but that's still different.
But I'm talking about receiving weapons. Derrick Henry, no question, is a huge threat and one of the best running backs in the league. But I'm talking about a receiving threat. You have to account for DeAndre Hopkins and make somebody else beat you in the pass game. And the fact that they didn't make that adjustment, now they have two really good corners. And Xavier maybe didn't have his best game, but you got Zay, you got Jalen, you got two of the best corners in the league. But if he's struggling, lean to safety. Where else you got to lean him? What else do you have to worry about on this team where you're saying, man, we can't give him too much attention? Give him attention. Double team him. Like, where is the adjustment, is at least to get us out of this game? Hey, this guy is killing us today. Hey, let's just get this fire put out and get to the next game, get a win, and walk away. You never want to go into a game where you had too much pride, Skip, where you're like, man, I got him, and to cost your team a game. And so that's the frustrating part. But, obviously, Tyreek Hill is the engine. And I don't know if this team is a Super Bowl contender. I really don't.
Glad you ended with that. By the way, Derrick Henry last night carried it 17 times for a grand total of 34 yards. But he did. If you give it to him down on the goal line, you cannot keep him out of the end zone. He just too big a load.
He totally looked like a shell of himself from several years ago.
He did. Okay, suffer me this. Allow me this.
I will allow it to you.
I'm Cowboy-centric right now. I'm lost in my Cowboys.
Trust me, last night, the first thing I said was, damn. And they was winning the game. And the first thing I said was, damn. And Miami's winning the game. And I'm sitting there saying, I don't want to listen to this guy tomorrow.
Because they don't look like they can beat you.
They don't look like they can beat you. I'm just going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you.
I couldn't help myself. At the end of the game, I said, I've been saying for weeks, I've been saying to you, every time you come back at me, I say, you got me on Miami. I will give you, we cannot win at Miami. Yes, we can win at Miami.
I might have to change my pick on that one. I'm sorry.
Right. I have never been sold on Tua. I think he's a great young man and all that. I'm not talking about him off the field. I'm talking about him as a quarterback. I didn't like him before the draft. He's undersized. He's soft-armed. And if you get any heat on him, he just starts to crumble. And again, he has not been durable, to say the least. So they have done, Mike McDaniel's done a masterful job of keeping him out of harm's way and getting the football out of his hands quickly on time to a track team of receivers. If you throw it quickly and let them run under it, it will work.
Yes.
And it has worked at the highest level because that's the offense that scored 70 points on the Denver Broncos. 70 points? And it looked that was in 3 quarters. They could have scored 100 points, it felt like.
Right.
That same offense last night could not score the football. It was struggling all game long. If you look hard at what happened, Tennessee handed them 3 touchdowns. Just said, here. Will Levis throws a pick 6 from about the 5-yard line.
On the screen.
Okay, and then they give the ball to Miami at their own 7 and at their own 12. Well, you're just saying, here.
Right.
So they had 2 long drives last night, both resulting in field goals, and that's it. Period. End of story. That's your 27 total points because they couldn't score in the first half, and they really struggled to score in the second half unless Tennessee said, here. Right. And then I thought their defense was starting to find itself because of those 2 corners, because I have the highest regard for both of them in and of themselves. Xavier did not have a very good game, and I agree with your point. I was like, wait, you're picking on him now?
Right.
But they didn't look like a dominant defense. They did not look like a dominant offense, and Tyreek just blew my mind because he claimed after the game he went at halftime, and he's texting with his wife who says, get your you-know-what back on the field. And he's like, okay, I guess I should.
Right.
Well, help me out. What changed? I don't know what changed from the second quarter to later.
I don't know. That's a weird one, Skip.
No, that's why I said I'm not on the sideline, and I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
But when he got injured, true, he was rolled. They landed on his ankle, but it wasn't like he went to the 10, he went to the sideline. They were working on him to try to figure things out. He just was standing on the sideline, so I don't know. I don't know what that was about.
I don't either, but, I mean, it looked like a bad spot. It looked like he might have sprained it. But, in the locker room, you can get to the locker room, you get to halftime.
I figured he'd get to halftime.
They got things to get you through the game and get you through.
Injection, maybe?
Yeah, 100%. But to your point, Skip, they had been playing since Jalen Ramsey returned to the lineup, they had been playing like a top 5, top 10 defense consistently. Vic Fangio is one of the best defensive play callers in the league, but it just looks different. They look dismayed. They look disorganized. They look Will Levis, who's been a really cool story throughout the season. I've liked his story. We got a chance to watch their game. Exudes confidence, plays hard, plays physical brand of football. A good story. But they let him shred them. They were down. He was down 2 touchdowns with 3 minutes to go? 3 minutes to go. Impossible situation.
You can't allow this at home. And they hadn't lost.
And I believe they may have only had 1 timeout in that span.
Right. But it's like you're not playing situationally aware football. You're not playing as a coordinator, as a defense, as a corner. Like I'm protecting the sidelines, and they only got 1 timeout. You know they're going to the sideline. It's almost like they got them on their heels, and it started to panic. And that's why, Skip, I thought they would I would have called that a win, too, against Dallas. I was like, hey, that's on the schedule. It's in Miami.
Miami's calling the win early in the game. First half, I'm like, yeah, they're going to beat them.
No,
even though it was even though it was a tight game,
Yeah.
I could see that Miami wasn't living up to the billing of all the hype as the number one seed in the AFC.
It's almost consistently, game in and game out, they have those spots in the game where they're like, we're unsure whether we're good or not.
Yeah.
And so to that point, to think they would go into a game with them and the Dallas Cowboys, and I would see that team the way they performed last night and be like, yeah, they're going to get Dallas. I mean, I'd be foolish. I want to be objective. I come in here and say the facts. If I think Dallas ain't got a chance, I'll
definitely do.
No,
scream it from the mountaintop.
Dallas,
they are a better team.
Last night,
they are a better team than the Miami Dolphins right now, and they're really a better team than the Buffalo Bills with the two performances that we've watched in the last couple weeks.
That is true. In fairness to the Dolphins, they were down 2 starters in their offensive line. Then they were down a rotational, and then Connor Williams, who's been playing center at a high level, used to be for my Cowboys, got hurt during the game. So if you shred their offensive line, all of a sudden, little Tua is under fire, and he's just going to shrink. He's going to play even smaller than he is. And that was the result.
Right.
He got out of harm's way a couple times, though. They put some pressure on him. He was able to escape the pocket.
I got it.
And make hay and pick up some yardage and positive stuff. But then when it really got tough, that's when you look at those 5 sacks. When it third down, things like that was where you said to yourself, okay, they really do miss Tyreek Hill. They just
really
do. They do, Skip.
We'll see how he responds off this ankle if it continues to plague him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the other game.
Really surprised. It's just the inconsistency of the National Football League right now. You really can't predict really anything. But last week after the win, because in the offseason I had said after they got rid of Aaron Rodgers and they said Jordan Love was the guy, I said to the Green Bay Packers fans, hey, nobody's going to fear you anymore. Nobody's going to sit there and be like, hey, they're going to say the big bad witch of the West is gone. Aaron Rodgers is gone. We got a chance in this division now. And then last week after they beat the Kansas City Chiefs, I had those fans coming at me with the replaying the clip like, hey, we've arrived, Jordan. Now what you got to say about us? I was like, you guys are a 500 ball club. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The kid's still developing. He's still got a lot of room to grow. And this game showed that.
Yeah.
You're going against Wink. Wink Martindale is one of those coordinators. If you haven't dealt with him a lot, he runs a very complex scheme, and the first time you see it, you're going to be shell-shocked. And a lot of teams and a lot of guys are, especially a young quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be better the next time he faces it. But the first time you face it, you're going to have some mistakes. You're going to struggle. You're going to see ghosts and things like that. And that's what happened. But it was up to that defense because Jordan Love did drive him down the field in the fourth quarter when they had to have it.
He did.
But so did Tommy DeVito,
Yes,
which is a really cool story.
It's an amazing story.
And I think they're impressed with what he's doing. I mean, Giants fans, I feel terrible for you because you got to go back to Daniel Jones when you've watched multiple quarterbacks play better than he was playing, even when he was healthy with the same weapons, with everybody. You watch how he played against your Dallas Cowboys multiple times. It's just a bad situation, but it's a cool story. Tommy DeVito, his family, he's from Jersey. They're at every game. He's got 9 touchdowns on the season. He drove them down the field when he needs to have it at home in New York. I love to see it, Skip. I love to see those things.
Maybe the Giants found their quarterback in the future and just don't know it.
Unfortunately, they just paid the other one.
Yeah, it's a short-term deal, though, so they can probably get from out underneath it at some point.
They're just going to eat the 40?
Yeah, but you can't win any football game with 3 turnovers. You just can't, Skip, right? I mean, you think about the 3 turnovers, 1 interception, 2 fumbles, 2 turnovers by Jordan Love and himself. Now, look. He was missing some players on the offensive side of the ball. Okay, some of his weapons were not there for him. So I give him a little bit of that as an excuse. But he's been a consistent enough quarterback to hold this down to get another look-see as a starting quarterback. You can't judge him based on last night or based on his first 3 years in the league. Because this is really, truly his rookie season, believe it or not, even though he's set behind Aaron Rodgers. This is the first time he's seen extensive action in the National Football League. Right. So he's going to have some growing pains, and he's going to do some things that's going to make you scratch your head at the same time. He's got to get an opportunity, a chance to finish the deal. Now, we'll see what he is the rest of the year, and then hopefully they don't have one of those quick triggers and say we need to go get a quarterback. That would be a mistake on the Green Bay Packers' fault because I think that they found a guy that they can build on for the future. When you're without Watson, you're without, what's the running back that Dylan played. Jones. When you're without Aaron Jones, you're without some weapons.
You are.
And so now you got Little Reed. He put it on the ground a couple times last night and did some amazing stuff. But then you got Dobbs, who's learning how to play with you. So if he had everything together, I think you would have saw a different game. Now, in terms of Tommy DeVito, what you gonna do? I mean, look at it. He ran the ball.
You're not gonna do what you said they're gonna do.
And they found Keyshawn Nixon at the right time. He didn't have a great game. He fumbled, costly fumble. He gave up the goods on the 3rd and 1.
Yep.
Big time play to put him in a field goal situation. I don't know how you let him run a deep crosser on you and separate to the point where all of a sudden he finds him. Now you in a chase technique looking at the tail lights. That's a problem. They found what they did is they found the weakest link in the secondary. And they said to themselves, in that situation, he was smart enough to go, okay, I see Nixon. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go attack that so I can put my team in a great scoring position. And they held on to it. So now the Packers are sitting at the 7th spot. You got the Giants, even though it may not happen. They're in a wild card situation on the back end. And if they keep winning out, they might wind up in the damn playoffs.
If they wind up in the playoffs, Dayball might get Coach of the Year again.
Think about it, though. But they're right now mathematically still in it.
Right.
And this kid is 3-1 as a starter with 3 in a row. He's building confidence.
He is. I can't help myself. I got to do it again. I got to tell you, I came away from that game thinking, go Cowboys, go. Because the Eagles still have to play Tommy DeVito twice. Twice. I got 2 shots at them losing games, not to mention they still have to go a week from last night. They have to go to where you live, to Seattle.
It's going to be a dogfight.
I don't know if Gino's going to be able to go or not. He's got a groin. But if Gino can go, that'll be a dogfight. I'm not sure about Drew Lock. But if Gino, it'll be a fight. So I got now 3 chances. And then I think the other one's Kyler. I think Kyler plays there at Philly. But those are my chances. I need Philly to lose a game or 2 more, obviously.
Right.
Okay.
One game ain't gonna help you. 2 gonna help.
Okay. 2 would, but again, I got Tommy DeVito on my side now because we already beat him.
Right.
And we did. Keyshawn, you got to give it up to the opening night. I still say,
so good.
when I go back to opening night, we went up there and beat them 40-0. I know it was Danny Dimes, but they were full strength, full.
Yeah.
40
You do so good, then you go off the rails.
40-0. Come on, we won 40-0 at Giants. They're a division rival. And then we beat Tommy DeVito when nobody even knew who he was. Everybody would call him Danny DeVito, including me. And now nobody calls him Danny because he is Tommy Cutlet, because his mom fixes him chicken cutlets.
He did a good job last night. He did a good job last night against a subpar defense in Green Bay, okay?
Yeah.
Look,
he was 17-21 for a $158.
His QBR was high because he was efficient.
Right.
And
he was efficient.
QBR counts.
And he had a nice run,
Can we show are we showing the 26-yard run? The kid can move a little bit. I'm not saying he's Lamar, but he did a good job.
You got to give credit to Brian Daboll for calling these plays and putting him in a position, not stressing him, not stretching him.
Yeah.
He did a good job.
Okay, he's about 6'2", 210 or 215 or so. He can move around a little bit. He's got an okay arm. Are we showing the big throw on the final drive? I think it was.
But I can guarantee you, he's not beating the Philadelphia Eagles.
The 32-yarder to Robinson. It's a pretty good throw. I'm not saying he's got any cannon, but
that was a dime. That was a dime. But back to Jordan Love.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to do, Skip, in any sport, at any position, is to follow a Hall of Famer. Is to follow, especially at the quarterback position. To follow a Hall of Famer, you want to go second. I want to go second.
I agree.
You don't want to follow a Hall of Famer. I want to be the next guy.
Yep.
I want to be the next guy after the guy follows him, and then I can show you, hey, I'm better than that guy because I just got to be better than him.
Okay.
But the expectations, even from Green Bay fans, are, hey, he's going to be Aaron. So you hear the comparisons when he has the stats that are comparable over, I think, 12 games. They had really comparable stats over the first 12. They're like, he's the next Aaron because Aaron followed Brett, and Brett was a Hall of Famer.
Aaron's first year wasn't great.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. They compared it to Jordan Love.
They showed the stats last night.
It was almost
they were identical.
It's almost identical.
Okay.
And so it's unrealistic expectations. because you're comparing him to a Hall of Famer. That was probably Aaron's worst year as a pro. But you're sitting here like, hey, this guy is the next coming. So no matter what he does,
he will get better next year.
100%. He'll get better. But unless he's Aaron Rodgers, it'll be a disappointment to these fans, and that's unfair. That's unfair because you're following a 4-time MVP.
I understand.
A guy who's taking you to, what, 5 NFC championship games?
But you can, as a player, can pay attention to what the fans are thinking because I am following a Hall of Famer. This is my first season as a full-time starter. So I got time to grow.
I hear you. But that's the world we live in. We live in an instant microwave success, and if it's not microwave, then we're calling for your head. So if he doesn't have a season comparable to Aaron's second year next year, when it's his contract year, they're going to be calling for a replacement, and that's the unfair part about it. So is this a setback for Jordan Love? Sure, but he's having a really good rookie season.
He is a rookie
starting season.
He is.
And I just hope that they give him the patience.
Right. The one thing I have loved about this young man, still very young man, is if you look at his fourth quarter numbers, every game that he's played, they're very good.
Yes.
Even, remember, we were at Colorado on that Friday with Dion, and they had played on Thursday night at home against Detroit. And if you looked at he almost threw for 200 yards in the fourth quarter. Well, last night he threw for almost 100 yards in the fourth quarter, 10 of 14 with a touchdown and no picks.
Right.
So he pretty much stunk much through the rest of the game. He had a hard time because, as you know, it gets windy in there and there's crosswinds, and he threw 2 or 3 balls that are like, what was that? And by the way, I got to just say this quickly about young Coach LaFleur, although he did coach Aaron Rodgers, but he has a bad habit on the sideline of when Jordan Love misfires, he's like, oh, you know, like give him a break because you're signaling Packer Nation. Did you see if the coach is upset, then the fans are going to be like, oh,
best throw of the night for Jordan Love. Climbed the pocket, slid to his right, and threw his sidearm. A straight laser for a touchdown. The kid just didn't hold on to the ball.
And then they batted it out.
I mean, that's a bang-bang play. I probably would have gave it to him if I was a ref because it was so pretty. That was the best throw of the night.
It was. But we've seen that on occasion.
But I've also seen Aaron Rodgers do that same thing.
Right, and you can see some of the stuff, but that's the same thing they were mad about Aaron about.
Yeah.
Because Aaron would do that to LaFleur. He would call it a bad play, he'd be like, see, I told you. I mean, he'd show him up. So it's weird that you know.
Yeah, that dynamic. Maybe
funny.
Coach learned from ex.
I saw that last night, too, and shook my head. Right. I said that. I said,
can't do that to no young.
Don't do that. Don't do that. All right.
If you did it to a coach, you would be a problem child.
Okay, so I haven't been able to help myself here twice. I have talked about the Dallas Cowboys. Now we're going to go full-on Dallas Cowboys up next because the money is rolling in on the Bills over the Cowboys. I don't get it. Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.